guys, welcome to my channel. Yes, I know I'm sitting off centre, it's very deliberate for this video because I'm going to be putting a lot of stats up here on how my reading went for 2019. Now, I'm really quite happy with my reading for 2019. I didn't DNF any books. I got very few that were under 3-star. In fact, there were only 3 that were. And overall, I had quite a few 5 stars as well, so I'll be going through those. So I'm going to jump into my charts. I read nothing but non-fiction. Those of you that watch my channel know that I'm a huge non-fiction reader. I love my fiction books. As for gender, 66% of the books that I read were by female authors. I didn't read any by non-binary, or if they were, I wasn't aware that they are non-binary. And 34% were by male. So I read more heavily female authors, but I'm really happy with that split. As for the format, 55% were print, so either hard copy, like hardback books, or paperback books. 13% were ebooks, and 32% were audiobooks. So I'm trying to also using audiobooks as a way to get more books in. I usually listen to them going to and from work, and if I'm doing a lot of data entry, I'll pop in an audiobook and listen to that. As for the age range, I'm not surprised. I read predominantly YA books. So 72% of the books that I read were YA. 22% were adult, and 6% were the source. I have 6 of them being a gift, so they were given to me as a birthday present or a Christmas present. 14% were from the library. 19% were borrowed, so by that probably meant I got them off my wife's shelf. But majority were, 61% were books I actually physically own, which is good. So most of the books I read were backlist books, with 94% being my backlist, 4% being published in 2019. Genre. Now, because of the way it's split, it's sci-fi fantasy, it's not split into science fiction and fantasy. But is that any surprise that is my highest genre? No. Not close. 73% sci-fi fantasy, 16% romance, 4% general contemporary fiction, 1% historical fiction, and 6% crime fiction. Now, then you can't select multiple genres per book. So most of mine fall under sci-fi fantasy, but they also can fall into historical fiction or into crime fiction, depending on what they are. Now for my ratings. I have 2 books that are 2-star, 1 book that's 2.5 star, 7 books that are 3-star, no books at 3.5, 41 books, so majority of my books were 4-star, no 4.5, and 18 books that are 5-star. Now I'm just going to put this aside and go through my 5-star reads in order for the year. So my first 5-star of the year was a Sarah J. Maas, and that was A Court of Wings and Ruin. Now this one wraps up the Akarnae series, and it has a sequel series coming out soon. I'm not going to tell you too much about this because it will spoil the other stories, but yes, I am a huge Faysand shipper. That was the first one. The next one was the Cowgirl by Anthea Hodgson. This is the companion sequel to The Drifter. So this one follows a different girl in the same town as The Drifter is set, and it is set after the events of The Drifter. Now, this one is about a girl who for some reason doesn't want to leave her farm. She's too scared to go back out after having a disastrous time at university. And throughout the course, Will tries to get to know her tries to get to know Teddy and tries to find out what exactly it is that makes her so closed off. Eventually things do end up coming out about what's happened in both Will and Teddy's past that have made them who they are, and they overcome some barriers to their relationship, and it's real romance. So of course they end up falling in love and happily ever after. But there are some. My next one is The Magician's Apprentice, so I'll put a picture up here. I listened to that as an audiobook. It is a prequel to the Black Magician trilogy by Trudi Canavan. So in the Black Magician trilogy, it's set, I'm not quite sure historically when it might be. It's in a completely different world, of course, but I get hints of like maybe 1800s England from that. This is set before that, before the guild is formed, where it's just magicians working on their own and taking on apprentices and training the apprentices in what they know. Now, this is a girl who learns the medical trade from her dad, and in the process of doing some healing, inadvertently uses magic, and then gets taken under the wing of a sorcerer in the town, or a magician in the town, because she needs to learn how to control her magic and use it properly, otherwise bad things happen. Now, towards the end of the book, there is this idea that there is a war coming with a neighbouring country, and you know what they were going to do to protect the people they care about. Next, the next two 5 stars were Akarnae and Raelia. So these are a portal fantasy. In this one, Alex goes to a new school, opens the door and finds herself in a completely different world. As the series goes on, you find that that was not an accident, that the world actually needed her and her ability to overcome this evil. Now, I haven't read the last book yet. I'm very close to reading it. I'll probably get around to it in 2020. But yeah, it's everything she does happens and is linked to something else that's either going to happen or has happened. And it's all this web of fate, and who she is doesn't really change. She learns more and more about herself and about her powers, and how is she going to save those she cares about. So that's that series. It's called The Medoran Chronicles. So the first 2 books in that series got 5 stars from me. Next is a graphic novel, The Wicked and the Divine. So this one, the blurb says, every 90 years, 12 gods return as young people. They are loved, they are hated. In 2 years, they are all dead. It's happening now, it's happening again. So 12 teenagers, late teens, end up with powers, and they're trying to find each other and also how to live their life without causing too much havoc. So it was quite a quick read through and I really enjoyed it. It's very diverse. I can't wait to read the next one along, because that was the Forced Act, as it's called. We've just picked up the second book, which is around somewhere, which I'll get to this in 2020. The Redemption of Alkalosis. This was a reread. This is one of the books I go back to reread when I'm not sure what I want to read. This one follows Althalus, who is a thief. And all his life he's been relying on Leigh luck and believing that there was a god or goddess somewhere that was giving him his luck. And he, at one point in his life, when he hits his, I'd say, early 20s, his luck turns bad all of a sudden. He has no idea why, he has no idea what he's done wrong, and he gets asked to go steal a book from a house at the end of the world. He goes to the house at the end of the world to steal it because he has no choice. He has no money, he has nothing, and he gets told he'll get paid the weight of the book in gold. And so he gets there, the house is empty except for a cat. which happens to be that one on there. Cat's name is Emmy, or that's what Cat gets called at that point in time, and he finds out that things are a lot bigger than they seem. The person that sent him to steal the book is actually really evil, and that it's up to him to get the team together to find the people that can best counteract the abilities of the people on the other team. Again, this is set medieval times where it's just horse and cart, and there's lots of different little kingdoms, so feudal kingdoms, and it's all about how, you know, good versus evil, and what happens when gods fight. So that's that one. Then I get to the conclusion of the Patterson Sisters trilogy, and this is Love Song, which follows the eldest sister Beth, and her life. She's a very successful doctor. She runs a clinic out of a small town, and then once or twice a month goes out bush to help the Aboriginal community. However, there's a big mining corporation that wants to have a mining town near to where the community is, and because it's a dry Aboriginal community, this causes problems. Sorry, wife has just come home. And so with this one, someone comes back to town, a musician that Beth used to tutor. They had a huge falling out in high school due to a complete misunderstanding. And so it's how they patch up their relationship and move forward. So next is another Australian author. I didn't actually track what percentage of nationality because the spreadsheet I did didn't have that section, but the one for 2020 will. And so this is another Australian author I read, which is Rachael Johns, The Art of Keeping Secrets. This is three best friends, each with their own secret of their past, and it's how those secrets end up coming out and what effect they have on the friendship, and what the impact has on their kids, because they all met when their kids started going to the same school. And so it's, do they keep their secrets and not tell anyone, or do the secrets come out and they finally get some closure for it? This one was another reread from high school. So this is A Journey to Distant Mountains. This one is definitely an epic fantasy where, you know, they go on a journey, face lots of things, and there's some magic, but it's very subtle magic. And so that was a good story. It's no longer in print, so of course I had to get it from eBay, and it's a secondhand book. So that's why it's like it is. But I really enjoyed it, and I will probably reread this in the next couple of years again. The next two are audiobooks that I listened to with my lovely wife. They are Stalking Jack the Ripper and Hunting Prince Dracula. Getting a bit tongue-tied now. And they are historical crime fiction. So Stalking Jack the Ripper, they both follow this girl by the name of Audrey Rose, who is learning forensic science from her uncle. In Stalking Jack the Ripper, they're investigating the Ripper murders. And as we know, that case has never been solved. It was left very open. So the author decided to close it out in a way that would make it want to be closed but kept quiet, so that no one really knew who Jack the Ripper was. And then Hunting Prince Dracula takes place in Romania at a forensic school. Both of these were by Kerri Maniscalo, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. If you like crime fiction, if you like fantasy elements to it as well, then I would definitely recommend these. Next is another graphic novel, and that was Nimona. So this one is what if the good guys aren't really good and the bad guys aren't really bad. This follows the sidekick to the supervillain and how she basically makes this villain's plots go really, really well, but incredibly off track at the same time. It is very funny, and in the end it does get revealed that things aren't what they seem, and I'm hoping that there'll be a sequel. It is by Noelle Stevenson. Then Escaping from Houdini is the next 5-star I read, and that one again is by Kerri Maniscalo, and this time Audrey Rose is on a cruise ship and people keep on turning up dead, and it's how she's trying to figure out who killed them, why they were killed, what was the meaning behind the tarot that's left behind, and her cousin is in love with Houdini, and how does she get her cousin away from Houdini so that they can have the normal life and her cousin doesn't have to face the stigma of being outcast from the society that they live in. Next is another crime fiction. This one's set in Tasmania, and it is Bloodtree River. So what happens is these girls, by Sarah Barry.
So you're really bad at telling people who books are by.
Sorry, I get so caught up in the story that I forget to say who it's by. This is why I also put the list them down below, because I know that I sometimes forget. So girls go to this ranch to help out. They then go missing after having arguments with certain members on the ranch, or get scared off by other members and they go missing, and a few have turned up dead. So Indy goes to investigate, and she starts to have feelings for the main suspect. But as she continues to dig deeper, she doesn't believe that he's behind it all. And just as she's about to get to finding out what's going on, how it all goes, she ends up becoming a victim as well. And it doesn't take long for everyone to find out the truth. If you want something set in Tassie that's crime fiction, I thoroughly recommend this. I have another reread that I read. It's The Magicians Guild. I'll put it up here. It's the first in the Black Magician trilogy. As I was explaining, I read the prequel earlier in the year, and then I went back and reread the first book in the series. So this follows a girl from the lower classes who inadvertently uses magic at a protest against the higher class. And because she uses magic, she has to then be trained, and it's up to her to decide whether or not she'll become a magician, or if she wants to go back to life she knew and have her powers blocked. There is a lot more twists and turns as it goes on. I'm just giving you an overall broad view of what the choice the girl faces. Initially she doesn't want anything to do with the magicians, not realising how dangerous that could be. So my second last 5-star was the Hammer of Thor by Rick Riordan. This one I love because it introduces Alex, who is a shapeshifter, she's also gender fluid and transgender. She prefers to be called female unless she tells you otherwise. So this is the second book in the Magnus Chase series, and it finishes up with Ship of the Dead. If you want a Norse myth where Thor is a grungy kind of heavy metalish kind of guy, this is it. He's definitely not polished like you would think from the Marvel series. Yes, I loved the characters in this. It's got a lot of diverse representation in it too. I would thoroughly recommend the Magnus Chase series. And my final 5-star of the year was Ensnared by A.G. Howard. This is the final book in the Splintered trilogy, So the main character in this one is Alyssa, and she is a descendant of the Alice Liddell from the original Alice in Wonderland story. And throughout Splintered, Unhinged, and Ensnared, you find out more and more about her past and her family and what that all means. Now in this book, her mum and her brother have gone into the Looking Glass world, and she has to try and save them. Her mum has gone through the Looking Glass world back into Wonderland, but Jeb is stuck in the Looking Glass world.
Jeb isn't her brother.
Sorry, mum and her boyfriend, I meant to say. So yeah, her mum and her boyfriend have gotten stuck in the her boyfriend's got stuck in the Looking Glass world, her mum is stuck in Wonderland. She has to somehow fix everything and get them back. And she also has to rely on Morpheus, who is a Netherling, that is someone from Wonderland. And there is a lot of tension there because Alyssa doesn't know who she loves more, if she loves Morpheus or Jeb more. And it comes to a head at the very end of the book. Heart-wrenching, very good story. Thoroughly recommend it. I nearly cried. Hey guys, sorry if the lighting was changed a little bit. The camera needed to be charged, so I'll get back into it. I had 3 books that were 2.5 stars or less. One of them was, the one that was 2.5 stars was Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. It was just so hard to get into, and then to convince myself to continue to read. A 2-star for me was The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This one was 2 stars because it was, again, a hard book for me to follow. Books that aren't linear are very difficult for me to follow and to follow with the storyline, figure out where I am, especially if there's no seeming reason behind the jumps in the timeline. The other was Thief's Magic by Trudi Canavan. I was really disappointed in it because I absolutely loved the Black Magician trilogy and the Magicians Apprentice. And this one had a lot of promise of being similar with like magic and the world building and stuff, but again it was hard to get into. It switched between 2 different characters' point of view, and I thought that, okay, we're seeing these 2 different characters. By the end of the first book they probably will meet up. They didn't meet up. There's still no indication that their stories are ever going to meet or have any relation to each other. So that's kind of why that one fell down and was a 2-star for me. So most of my books, so I read 20 books between 300 pages and 400 pages. I read 16 400 to 500, and then I had 9 books that were over 500 pages. So a lot of my books are on the larger side of things. Basically, 84% of the books I read were over 200 pages long. Now getting into some of my Goodreads stats. So I read 69 books in total, and the total pages for that was 24,800 approximately. My shortest book was a short story series, was one of the books in the short story series by Melissa Carlton, and that was Welcome to Hell. My longest book was the same as my wife's longest book, and that is Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. The most popular book that I read that people had been reading on Goodreads was The Night Circus. The least popular, with 681,000 other people reading The Night Circus. The least popular was A Journey to Distant Mountains by Jill Dobson, with 41 other people reading that, which doesn't surprise me given it is a very old book. it was published over 10 years ago, so that helps. My average rating is 4.1 stars. The highest rated on Goodreads is Grey Veil by Lynette Noni. That's in the Madoran Chronicles, and that has a 4.62 star average. So that pretty much sums up my year for 2019. And so that is what's been happening for me for reading. I aim to again try and read as many big books as possible, and again aim to read 3 stars and above, because I don't want to be wasting time on books that I do not like. So I'm very happy with my stats for this year. If you have any books you would like me to expand upon, or if there are any books you think based on my 18 5 stars you think I would enjoy, please let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!